and welcome back to a new video. I thought it was high time for a tutorial on this channel, and if you haven't guessed by the title of this video, I'm going to show you how to make yourself or somebody else levitate using your camera and my good friend Photoshop. I have done many a levitation photo over the years that I've been doing this, and my way of doing them varies. So I'm here to show you a few different ways that you can do levitation in your photography. The basics of doing this both in camera and in Photoshop is reasonably easy, so if you are a complete beginner, do not stress, you've got this. And now it is time to go to the park and make ourselves levitate. I'll see you there. Okay, so I've just arrived at my local park ready to shoot. It is a little bit windy, so I do apologize if there is any interference with the sound. You can shoot this wherever you want. You don't have to shoot this in a park. I do recommend though having a blank background where there's a lot of negative space, kind of like what is behind me, because it's going to make it much easier to edit in Photoshop. But if you have more experience, this isn't necessary. For the purposes of keeping this beginner friendly, I am just wearing your everyday basic clothing. I know not everyone has access to fancy costumes. I've also intentionally worn clothing with a slightly tighter fit. I'm wearing black jeans and just a jumper that's kind of tucked into my jeans. When you're wearing something that's a little bit more drapey and loose, for instance, like a dress, the edit can become more complicated when you're in Photoshop, and I'm just trying to keep this as basic as possible. Whether you're taking self-portraits or photographing somebody else, I do recommend having a tripod, purely for the fact that it's going to make your life a whole lot easier when you are editing these photos together in Photoshop. You'll also need a stool or a chair. So I'm setting my tripod fairly low to the ground, and I'm going to be angling it slightly up towards the stool over there. Depending on the lighting that you're shooting in, your camera settings will probably vary. However, I am shooting on the Canon R5 with the Canon Macro 1.8 35mm lens, and my settings are currently set to ISO 100, f3.2, and my shutter speed's at 640. Since I'm shooting this as a self-portrait, I'm going to use the Canon app on my phone, but if you don't have an app on your phone, you can just set the timer to 10 seconds and run back and forth. There is always a way to shoot it, even if you don't have somebody to assist you, like an app or an actual person. Obviously, if you're using a model, then you do not have to worry about this. For posing, you might choose to lay on your stomach or your back. For this particular image, I'm going to be laying on my stomach. You want to position yourself as close to the edge of the stool, or even slightly hanging over it as you can. Because when you go to shoot, you want your clothes to be hanging naturally. And if you're just completely on the stool will flatten your clothing. So it's not going to look natural when you remove the stool in Photoshop. To add a storytelling element to this image, I'm going to be using a book, but it is not necessary for you to use a prop. It's entirely up to you. You can just play around with posing if you'd prefer. Okay, so it is now time to take your photos in your chosen position. I'm using the app so I can see just how well I'm hanging off the edge. It's a little bit difficult, but you just gotta make do. Okay, that was quite an abs workout, but I think I have gotten a shot that I like. I think it took me about 10 times to find one, but I am really happy with how this looks, and we can definitely make this work. So once you've got a photo that you're happy with, you're going to leave the stool in place if you're shooting by yourself, or if you've got a model or somebody is helping you, you can get them to stand in for you. But basically what we want to do is get a blank shot of the background, because we'll be using that when we edit the stool out in Photoshop. The reason that we want somebody to stand in for us, or if you're alone having the stool, is because you want to use that to get your focal point, and then you'll remove it and take a photo of the background without anything in it. Okay, so once I've got my focus on the area that I want it to be focused on, I'm going to switch my focus to manual so that the focal point will remain. And now I can remove the stool out of the image. I'm going to take a blank shot of the background, And I'm going to angle my camera up and down so that I can get the sky and everything as well. And then that way, if I want to expand my frame, I can. For this particular levitation, we're going to be in a vertical position, standing up on the stool. If you are shooting somebody else, you don't necessarily need a tripod for this one. However, it's always going to be more of a stable image if you have a tripod. For this particular image, I have raised my tripod up off the ground a little bit higher than what I did for the first one, mainly because I am shooting a vertical position, so I want more of the sky to be in it. Okay, lucky for me, Chris has just called me and said that he's in the area, so he's actually going to come and help me shoot this last one. If you can get somebody to assist you when you're on your own, it does make life so much easier. So for the second image, thankfully Chris is here to save the day. Okay, so it's now time to shoot your second image. I'm going to climb up on the stool. Obviously, be careful when you are doing this. Only do what you are comfortable with. I am choosing to balance on one leg and have the other leg dangling, so that I only have to photograph this leg and composite this leg in Photoshop. If you're not comfortable balancing on one leg, photograph yourself as close to the edge of the stool as possible, and then you'll have to photograph both legs afterwards. Cool. All right, take a test shot. Wait, take another test shot. Okay. So once again, I'm just gonna raise my tripod a little bit more. I'm not liking the angle. Just gotta keep playing around until you get something that you like and are happy with. Okay, so I'm happy with the angle that I've got now, so now we can actually take some photos. For safety, I'm just gonna take some photos with the book as well, just in case I don't end up liking how the images look without it. So I've taken a whole bunch of photos. I'm sure that there's going to be one in there that will be perfect for this tutorial. I'm now going to do the same thing as I did in the first one, where I focus on the stool and then I'm going to remove it and just take a photo of my background. And then we are done, and I'll see you guys back in Photoshop. Okay, so I am at home. I've jumped into Photoshop and I have chosen this image as my favorite one to edit for the horizontal levitation. What we need to do now is remove this stool, and there's a couple of ways we can do it, but I'm going to show you this way today. We're going to take the blank image that we took while we're out on our photo shoot. I'm going to hit Control A, Control C, and I'm going to go to the main layer and hit Control V. We want to make sure that this layer is aligned with the main layer underneath. So to do that, we're going to lower the opacity down a little bit, and I can see that it's not in perfect alignment. So I'm going to hit Control T, and I'm just going to drag it across and align it as best as I can. It doesn't matter if it's not absolutely perfect. Hit Enter, and then we're going to turn the opacity all the way back up. We're now going to drag this layer down beneath the main layer, and we're going to put a layer mask on this top layer 0 here. We're going to use the brush tool, and we want to make sure that it's set to black because we're going to be erasing the stool. When we erase the stool off this layer, we're going to see what's on this layer underneath. As I get closer to my body, I am going to up the hardness of my brush a little bit. I've got about 70% here, and I'm not going to worry about doing this absolutely perfectly because we don't have time to sit here all day, but when you're doing your own image, you'll get in there nice and close and do a much better job than I would right now. I'm just wanting to show you guys how to do this. Okay, so I can see that the image beneath is actually brighter than the main image. So what I'm going to do is get a curves adjustment layer. I'm going to hit the clipping mask so that when I do anything on here, it's only affecting this layer 0. And I'm going to turn the brightness up a bit so that it aligns. If I were to continue editing this, I would expand my frame, I would get rid of the phone, and I would obviously fix up all the little details here, which you can do on your own photo when you are editing. But this is how you do a horizontal levitation. For vertical levitation, it can be a little bit more time consuming with the way that I do this. However, I do like the results the best when I do it this way. I'm going to be using this as my main image. I like the way that my hair is floating in the wind. However, I don't start with this. I start with a square image of just the background. And the way that I do this is by expanding my frame. I go to Image, Canvas Size, Inches, and I just chose 20 by 20 inch. And then that brings me here. I lower my main image of the background down because I don't want as much ground showing at the bottom. So I only have minimal ground because I want mostly sky. And then I just bring my extended image of the sky in and put that up the top. And now I'm going to grab myself, I'm going to get the lasso tool, and I'm just going to make a very rough selection. I'm going to Control C, go into my main layer and Control V. Control T, and I'm gonna actually make myself a little bit smaller. And I'm just gonna turn myself a little bit so that I'm straight. And this is where the time-consuming part comes in, because we need to get rid of all of this around here. And you can do this with the pen tool or the brush tool, whatever suits you. I use a bit of both, but mostly I use the brush tool. And it's just about erasing everything out. Right now I'm on a round brush and I'm at about 83% hardness. And this is the time consuming part because you want to do this really well and really nicely detailed. I find that using the brush is what helps me get it to be so detailed, and at least this way when I am editing, I know that everything is nice and crisp. When you get down to the foot, so I'm obviously going to be keeping this foot here because it's already in a position that I like. And I'm just going to cut this foot off at around here. And then we'll be bringing in the other foot where I had it dangling in a different photo later. And I'll show you that very soon. Okay, so I have made my selection and masked myself out, and I'm happy with the result. And now I need to bring in the other foot. So we're going to go into the picture of the foot. I'm on the lasso tool, and I'm going to just make again a rough selection. I'm going to Control C, go to the main image and Control V. And now I need to go in and mask it out just as I did with my body by putting a masking tool on there, getting the brush tool on black at around 80% hardness. And we're going to mask all of this out around here. Okay, so I have now masked out the foot, and I've just softly masked out up the top just to get rid of the sharp line along there. I'm going to Control T, and we're going to be dragging this over here. Because this leg is actually behind this leg, we want this foot to be behind this foot. So I'm going to drag this layer under the main body layer. There we go. And we're just going to do our best to align this up with my body and my foot. Where are we? Could be up a little bit, so probably looking at around there. Happy with that. Maybe just down a little bit. It's just about playing around with it to get the best alignment. And now what I'm going to do on the main body image, at a soft round brush, I'm just going to get rid of these lining here. Awesome. And now that looks like I am levitating in the air. We do want to add some shadows behind this foot so that it seems more realistic. So the way to do that, we're going to grab the lasso tool and we're going to just draw a rough shape like this, and we're going to feather it. I'm going to feather it around 20, that seems good. And now we are going to create a curves adjustment layer, and you want to make sure that the curves adjustment layer is under the top layer, which is your body, so that it's not affecting that layer. And we're just going to drag this down and create a little bit of shading. And there you have it. That is how you do a vertical levitation. I'm going to continue editing this off the recording, and I'll show you the finished image in just a moment.